Come with me. I want to show you something.
I don't know where I've been. I don't know where I'm going. Been holding on to the past, but this life keeps on moving. Don't you worry about me. I'm gonna leave this all behind tonight. And it may take a little time just for us to get it right.
In 2023, I moved alone to a remote location in the Australian bush to untouched land with no town water supply, no electricity, and no waste system. My goal was to build a container house and homestead haven in this beautiful Australian landscape. I had never lived off-grid before. I only have a tiny budget, I have no trade experience or a tool-handy dad, but I did know what I didn't want, and that was to spend the small fortune that I worked my bum off for. Half a tiny suburban house and a mortgage that I'd be paying off for the next 30 years. Neither did I want to be forced out of a rental due to another housing crisis and have my whole life disrupted again, which is why I left my other home at the other end of the country. I lived in one of the most beautiful places in Australia before I moved here off grid, where I founded a bush school and taught children through connection to culture, country and community every day at waterfalls, rivers and creeks. Life was very beautiful, very simple and full of magic at each new waterfall that I found. And this is also where I found my building inspector, Django, also formerly known as a teacher's assistant. I love you. And Django quite possibly loves the waterfalls more than I did. But unfortunately, with the aftermath of COVID, I had to pack up my belongings, my school, my snake, my 4 chickens, and of course Django, and drive across the country in search for a new place to call home. However, there was a catch. The top part of Oz and the bottom part is connected by only one usable road in the wet season, and it was a big wet season, and the road on a bridge crossing collapsed.
WA's Kimberley, this is the Fitzroy Crossing Bridge. This, yesterday, is spectacular and devastating.
Buckled badly and is impassable. It's the only bitumenised road connecting northern Western Australia.
Meaning I had to drive through 3 different states instead of 1. But on a plus note, I got to see a lot. So I'm officially leaving Kununurra, a place I love so much. But it's time to move on. Travel with my dog, my 4 chickens and my snake. So there's my baby already. And there's my snake, all quarantined up because they're not allowed to leave the state. My chickies. It's time to go. We're at the WA border. Come on guys, get off the road. I'm not trying to race you. Last night I didn't sleep at all because it was hot. Now I'm wearing a jumper. And can you see the roads there? Jesus. Fuck me, there's been some rain, boys. Especially in South Australia. Coming into Cooper Pedy. Officially reached the Great Australian Bight. About to start the nuzzle. Look at that. Of travelling in one van with 6 animals and 1 human, but I still had nowhere to go. So I started searching with my newfound love of nature and water from the place that I just moved from. I was in search for land, and that search took 6 months, but I finally found a beautiful untouched haven in the middle of the bush within my price range. And the best part was Django approved. But this is also where the challenges of learning how to live off-grid began. I had nowhere to stay, no water, no electricity, no sewerage system, and that's when my off-grid journey began. Now, I can't say my filming at the start of this journey was anything to be proud of, but hey, at least it's documented. Out on the property this weekend, just to get started on a lot of things that need to get done. One of the things I've done is purchase a caravan to stay in while I'm building the house. So I'm just going to give you a little before shot of that, mind all the junk that's in there, so that you can see the state it's in before and then what I've done to it after. Okay, thank you. I've just been marking out the house, the shed and the rainwater tank. Got the house, and then I've tried to not lose as many trees as possible basically. So we've got the shed, and then behind them over there is the massive rainwater tank. So I've just finished doing the 2 dams as well. There's the first dam, second dam, which is going to be slightly bigger. A bit hard to see because I've run out of the tape. One's about 13 meters by 13. It's the caravan. It's about 21 foot and 1979 millard. I've got a lot of stuff in here at the moment. So it's got this section over here. I'm going to take all of this out and turn this side, coming out a little bit more, into a little double laundry right here. And then this spot is going to be a little ensuite, so a shower and a toilet and vanity. And a fireplace is going to go here. And then we've got the kitchen. Fix up these cupboards, put in maybe a bed frame and stuff here. And then we've got a little mirror over here. Might change this bench top too, not too sure yet. So that's the caravan. So that was it. My first project was shelter. Where can I stay while I build my dream? I found this caravan on Marketplace very cheap and renovated it into a functioning living space with a lounge room, laundry, bathroom, toilet, power and water, and even a queen size bed for around 1,000 Aussie dollars. And that was my first time picking up power tools. So the work was by no means professional standards, but it was a good starting point, and it's still standing strong today. And I only had to get a new hot water system once, and that was my bad, trying to use the system's water pump to pump all the rainwater out of my footing holes the day before pour day. But let's not get ahead. With a place to rest my head, it was time to move on to the next project while I waited for my building plans. So by this stage, I'd got the closest earthworks company in to clear the land where the house needed to go. Being in a high fire risk area, there's strict rules around proximity of trees next to buildings. And now that I had a bed, my girls needed one too. So with the trees that had just been felled, I built the girls a coop and bed using mainly natural and recycled materials, which cost nothing. This is where my confidence of moving large logs and bits of steel came in. With the chicken coop complete, I was equipped to take on hundreds of meters of rural fencing. This is also where I learnt the importance of safety around power tools. Here's amateur me using the auger with my hair down and the baggiest of shirts. I was quoted $30,000 to get this fence built. So I decided to do it myself using the trees again that had been felled, and I did it for less than $1,000. I cut the trees to size, debarked the bottoms and sealed them, then carried them into my car and drove them around to the holes I'd augured. I had so much motivation at this stage that I completed all the fencing in a week. Look how good it's still looking. It's been a year now and it is still going strong. There is some dents in it, some places where kangaroos have bounced into it, but other than that, it's looking amazing. The fence was put up for a few reasons: to keep neighbours' dogs out, to keep my Django in, to stop people walking onto my property, and to mark out some boundaries because none of my neighbours knew where they were. The trees that are covering my property are mainly jarrah, which is a beautiful red hardwood and is incredibly strong. Jarrah is also really expensive to buy. It's a really high quality wood, but I won't be cutting down any more trees. They're just too beautiful and I want to keep them all, and they take forever to grow. So it's just the ones that had to be felled, and I'm going to mill these ones to create the decking for my rooftop deck and the deck that goes around the house. They have been sitting here for a year now, but I did seal them with log sealer, so hopefully they're okay. My plan is to mill as much of this wood as possible to turn it into decking boards, posts, beams, fascias, paneling, and as many feature pieces as possible. So I really have my work cut out for me. But if I can get it done, I'm going to save so much money as well as having high quality timber throughout my house. While we're on the topic too, you've probably noticed my property is filled with these guys. They're called xantharias, or they're more commonly known as grass trees. Xantharias have been used for thousands of years in Australian culture, and they have multiple uses. And one of those uses is that they produce resin that can be made into a glue, or my favourite, varnish. The varnish is a deep, beautiful red colour that's waterproof. Tested out this varnish a few times on my outdoor bathroom and sign, and they've both been out in the elements all winter with no sign of damage. So if I can use the xantharia resin to make my own varnish as well for the build, I will save so much money in that department as well. And so all my wood will have such a unique colour and look and finish. I could talk forever about xantharias. They're pretty amazing. But another cool thing is they only grow 1 centimetre every year and take 30 years to get out of the ground to begin with. So I've estimated this guy to be about 400 to 450 years old. Pretty amazing. Boss lady. Time to put boss lady away for the day. Boss lady. Oh. It's my mental health shot alarm. I'll show you what I mean. Hang on. To go to the fridge and grab my shot. Come on. Magic Mind contacted me a little while ago and asked if I wanted to test out their Magic Mind mental performance shot. And I'm going to admit, I was a little bit skeptical. I am not one to stick to a routine and I am not one to drink health drinks. But when they worded it saying it was a 7-day challenge, I was like, well, challenge accepted. Can't deny myself a good challenge. So I set my alarm at 8 AM every day. I have completed the challenge, so hooray for Jasmine. So I thought I would record the 7-day challenge for you so you could see how it went. Okay, now this is strange, but hear me out. The main thing that I wanted to see if it improved was if I could stay focused better, because I'm an absolute scatterbrain. So my way of doing that was keeping track of how many times I forgot where I put things throughout the week, because I do that a lot. On a good day, it's at least a dozen times that I walk around going, oh, where did I put that? I was like, all right, I'll keep a tally and we'll see if I get more focused throughout the week. And you know what? I didn't even finish the tally before I knew it was working, because the first few days, even remembering to do the tally was so difficult. But then by day 4, I was telling my little heart out consistently. So I mean, so far so good, I would say. So Magic Mind is basically a mental performance shot that took 5 years and 106 formulas to create. Apparently, caffeine doesn't even give you energy. It just blocks neuroreceptors that tell you you're tired, which is probably why I've always been a big fan of caffeine. Magic Mind has over 100% of your daily vitamin D and C in every shot, which is pretty insane because, I mean, it's tiny. The biggest selling points for me was that it doesn't replace your morning coffee, but it actually accompanies it. It works really well for me. But the other big selling point for me is if you were to give me like a normal massive size health drink and tell me that I needed to drink that every day, I don't know if I'd be able to do it, because the thought of that is so daunting, having to drink like a big one. I only like drinks when they're cold. If they go warm, I don't like them. So the fact that it's a shot like this and I can literally just down it, remember my teenage years and carry on with the day, that makes me a fan. So I am definitely feeling more focused throughout the day, which is really good because so much is going on with the container build. It's nice to know that I can lay out a plan and stick to it and stay focused throughout the day, because otherwise I'm just running around like a headless chook. If you want to try it, there is a link below in my description, and Magic Mind is so confident that if you don't like it, they'll give you 100% discount. 100%. Full money back. Remember to look in my description for the discount code for Magic Mind. Say bye! Next land project on the property I had to tackle was waterways, and in particular 2 dams. I used to study maps in my old tropical home to find hidden and untouched waterfalls, so I used that knowledge to discover that my land had what looked like an underground waterway before I bought it. While earthworks were on my property to clear the trees, I asked them to dig 2 dams. One was meant to be on the waterline, and I was thrilled to discover I was right, and the dam had hid an underground spring exactly where I thought. And this is where I created my water management system. But the first step was to enhance the dams because they were left a mess. So armed with a shovel and a wheelbarrow, I built up the dam walls, removing all the branches, rocks and sticks to make a tight clay base. Then I transported hundreds, and I mean hundreds, of wheelbarrows of soil to the dam to create a layer that I could grow plants in. This took 2 months, and that's when I realised for the first time that I could actually grow mussels after never having them my entire life. And this shot of the revamped dam next to the one that I haven't touched really shows the difference. You're probably thinking, but you've got a house to build. Why are you building swimming spots? And that gets me to the fun part, the building and planning stage. So remember I told you I was looking forever to find a house? Well, in that time, I was also compiling a lot of documents, lots of research, and getting everything I needed in place so that I knew how to get building approval and become an owner builder when I could. So I knew the planning and approval process down to a T. But no matter how much you plan for something, if other entities or parties are involved, you are on their time. Even after all the planning in the world, the process can still be slow if you're on someone else's time. So as soon as I bought the house and the land was settled, which itself took 2 months, I jumped straight into becoming an owner builder and getting my plans developed for approval. The owner builder section was quick and easy, and all it involved was owning land, which I now did, and then completing an owner builder course and getting your white card, which is just a general construction induction course which highlights safety. I completed the owner builder course, got my white card, but I still needed building approval. That's where the real hold up began. Now I'm the type of person to get 10 to 20 different quotes. Sometimes I actually get every single quote I can find in a 400k radius. house. This may sound crazy, but remember, I've got absolutely no building experience, no experience in this area at all. So this is my way of determining what the standard price is and what businesses value themselves as. So I picked a draftsman that wasn't the cheapest and wasn't the most expensive, but he did say that he had experience planning container house builds before. Only after that I found out none of these container houses had actually ever been built. And in all honesty, this is actually where the ball stopped moving for a while. I asked for a time completion date and he said 4 to 6 weeks. 6 months later, I'm still calling wondering what's going on. And the draftsman is just one area of the building approval. He'll draw up your building plans, but then you also need input from a bell assessor, which is in relation to higher fire risk areas. Then there's an energy assessor, land surveys, soil reports, engineers, and then finally, after all those people have developed the plans together, a building assessor comes and checks every area and certifies it all for approval. The whole planning process took 8 months, and at the time I wasn't thrilled about it, but it was worth the wait because when I went to get approval, it was all approved within a week, which is unheard of. But those plans were extensive. So this is the reason that I had so much time to tend to land projects when I first got the homestead. I got a bit over the top with land projects too and thought I'd be able to complete a lot more than I did before I got approval. I made a guest house, but then I also bought a second caravan to renovate and sell, along with not one, but 2 tiny house trailers to build 2 tiny houses on. Yeah, I dream big and my ability to comprehend time is almost non-existent. But hey, at least I'll be busy for a few years to come. Knowing me, probably a few lifetimes to come. But as 2023 rolled to an end in December, which is actually when I started sharing my journey on Instagram, I suddenly had building approval and it was full steam ahead. Now, of course, the holiday season probably wasn't the best time to be going full steam ahead, especially when I'd originally wanted to contract the job of my foundation build out to somebody else. But after getting multiple quotes for my footings and contractors out, one even measured and set up the markers before telling me how much it would be. And all of them were around the same, which was about 60,000 Australian dollars. Now, I haven't mentioned my budget yet, but now's as good a time as any. It's only $100,000 for the entire home build. So you do the math. If it was going to be $60,000 to complete the foundations, that didn't really leave me with much to buy the containers and complete the rest of the build. But I rarely see failure as an option. So I knew the only choice I had was to build them myself. And I'm an owner builder, so I'm allowed to do it, so why not? I entered a world of research and I've never really left it, to be honest. But that's when I started my 8-week-long journey of building my own house foundations solo. My container house foundations isn't a concrete slab, so it's not as straightforward. With footings, there's a lot of measurements and components involved, but the funnest part was discovering the measurements on the plans were wrong. With time of the essence and trying to beat winter and the inevitable rain, I had to work out all the measurements myself and train myself in a bunch of different skills in a very short period of time. It started with the digging. Oh no, don't take me back to the digging. The digging took up 5 weeks of the entire 8 weeks it took me to complete the footing. Soil is rock hard clay, and even when I hired a digger, it struggled to dig through the ground. And after 2 days of hire, which was all I could afford, I had barely scraped the surface. I had to use a bunch of different tools like shovels, pickaxes, but my favourite was this blue heavy thing, and the jackhammer of course, until I finally had 16 perfect holes. In reality, this was actually the easy part, because then I had to make all the forms and formwork for my footings, which included 16 square footing forms and 16 cylinder footing forms. I used recycled pellets and oil drums to make these, saving myself thousands of dollars in this area. This is also where I first taught myself to weld. I was honestly convinced that I'd be electrocuted for some reason. And then I had to deal with rebar, Rio, whatever you want to call it, hundreds of meters of it. I needed to make rebar grids for the holes and rebar towers for the footings. This meant bending a lot of rebar, and I used 2 bolts in a tree to save some money doing this. And again, this is where I really started to make those muscle gains. With hundreds of columns and ties cut and bent, I finally had all my grids and towers, and it was time to put everything together in the hole that I dug. I compacted builder's sand and blue metal dust in first for drainage, and then I added builder's plastic. In went the square forms and grids and towers, but this was the tricky bit. The cylinder forms needed to hover above the ground, so I built bracing to hold them all in place. I then attached foundation bolts to the Rio towers to be concreted into the footings, and after 8 weeks and a day out from pour day, I thought I was done. But Mother Nature had other ideas, and the rain had been racing against me, and it won. Suddenly all my footings were filled with water, and I spent the night before pour day with a bucket getting it all out. But I made it, and then within a few hours, pour day was done, and I had poured 10 tons of concrete into my footings, and they were setting, ready for the containers. But before I could get them delivered, I needed to make steel plates to secure on the footings and be welded to the containers. But then I also realised that I needed a concrete shed pad, because once my containers had arrived, a cement truck wouldn't have access to the area. So with winter impending, I completed my sheet pad within 2 weeks, including getting the concrete delivered and pouring and laying it myself. And with my shed pad done and the steel plates over the bolts and ready in place on the footings, I was all ready for the most exciting day of the build to date. The containers are arriving today. This was nerve-wracking because I knew I didn't have much space for cranes and massive trucks to move around, but these guys were so experienced and could maneuver around easily. By the end of the day, I had 4 40-foot high cube shipping containers in place and the start of my home. I'm pretty happy. Welcome to my house. I even got a 20-foot one delivered for storage. I may be planning to turn that into a natural pool after, but shh, spoilers. And that was it. That was the start of my dream taking shape. As fun as the journeys looked, it hasn't been a walk in the park. I got the containers delivered at the start of winter, so the first 3 months of the build were going to be the hardest. I started with the most important task, and that was securing the containers to the footings, because I've heard horror stories about strong winds making them hover and move. So stick welding for the first time and learning the correct procedure for welding cast steel, I secured all the footings to the containers. With the relief of having them secured, I knew I couldn't work externally in the rain, so I thought I'd start taking down the walls internally. However, before I could do this, I first had to join my containers externally on the roof. I used over 24 metres of steel flat bar to do this. I first had to grind off all the paint and rust on the joins, and then this is where I really started to become a pro welder. After 48 metres of continuous welding to join my 2 containers. With all of it sealed, I could finally move inside for the fun part, taking down the walls. As fun as this job was, it was actually twice as hard. I used a few different methods to get the walls down, like the plasma cutter, but the angle grinder was my favourite, as the cuts really are the neatest. After getting covered in sparks for a couple of weeks, I had all the walls down and the house was starting to take shape. This is also an important time in the build, because the moment you cut into a container and take out sections, you're removing the structural integrity. So I put acro props as temporary supports in, and later I'll add in timber posts for permanent supports. The containers were still only joined externally on the roof at this point, so this meant hours upon hours of grinding and smoothing to smooth down the floor and the sides of the containers. I added steel flat bar to the sides and welded to join them internally, and then I used the wall panels to create my own flat bar to join the container floor, and this was another 24 metres of welding. But with all that welding experience under the belt, 2 of my shipping containers were completely joined and sealed, and with winter coming to an end, I could move back into the open air to build. I'm completing the external container work first that involves all the welding, and this is for a safety reason, because when you weld on the outside of the containers, the inside can heat up and create a fire. I got to learn this the hard way. I don't know, oh my God, come here. Look at the container doors. I don't know if you can see that coming out. So these are the things that are on fire. The first job that I wanted done externally was my roof so that I could have somewhere rain-free and shaded to work. This is a massive steel structure and I had to figure out how to move and place 6.5 meters to 8 meter steel beams during this build. And if I've got one word of advice, leverage is your best friend. I started by using a combination of welding and bolts to secure my post to the container frame and corner castings. No weight will ever be on the actual container roof, always the frame. Then had to waterproof my 2nd story roof because with the skillion roof on top, I wouldn't be able to access it. I removed all the rust, discovered some holes, patched them all up, and then waterproofed the entire roof. Then I somehow successfully pulled off getting all the rafters and beams up and into place and welded together for my frame. Now, do you want a real challenge? Have you ever tried moving 8 meter roof sheets solo? After working out a system, I put it to work and somehow over the course of a day and a half, because I had storm warnings in spring, managed to get up all 16 8 meter roof sheets solo, as well as secured into place. However, my plans were missing one sheet, so I'm still one sheet short, but I still need to get up things like fascias and gutters and downpipes and trims and paneling. So I'm gonna do that when I do those things. But having a roof over my head was a pretty big moment of the build. Now, I was borderline traumatized from all the digging I had to do for my foundation footing. So luckily my decking has ground screws. Phew. So that means I don't have to dig a million more holes for my deck footing. In rock hard clay ground, this still isn't fun, but it's nowhere near as hard as digging. But that did mean it was officially time to start my upper and lower deck. I made a start with the upper deck first, as this had the most external container welding. Again, I had to repeat the process of rust removal, treatment and waterproofing, and of course rust hole patching. This is when I created my first, and hopefully my only, small fire inside the container. It was a great reminder as to one of the reasons I chose a container house, and that's because of the risk of fires in my area. At this point, the muscles I'd been growing for months really came in useful here, because I had to get up 8 meter steel tubing all by myself. It actually wasn't as hard as I thought it would be by utilizing leverage. And with my roof frame already in place, I only had to add an extra 6 more posts for the roof decking frame. And then it was time to get some more welding experience and weld in all my bearers and so many joists in place. And now you're all caught up. I'm getting all ready to hopefully enjoy a beautiful Australian summer in the bush, building my dream house and homestead. This has honestly been such a rewarding journey so far. It's opened up a new world of possibilities for me and quite honestly changed the direction of my life. And I could not be more grateful that I get to share it with so many of you. For everyone here, new or been following my journey for a long time, thank you for being here. Thank you for joining me every Sunday. Thank you for giving me tips and advice. And thank you for being there to give me such kind words when things can feel pretty difficult in the time. That part of it has honestly been such a big part of my journey as well, and I am so grateful. So thank you. Let this be a little reminder that it is never too late to change the direction of your life and become a new version of yourself. Evolution of self is one of the beautiful things that we get to enjoy being human. Have a beautiful week, and I'll see you next Sunday for more of the container home build journey.